Bush, a veteran, some guys that are really going to be battling in these final few races to try to get themselves into those playoffs.
The story to start was the big three. Penske, Gibbs, and Hendrick seemed to dominate. Josh Berry got that win at Las Vegas, but I consider him kind of a Penske car. But then last week, Trackhouse on the scene. Ross Chastain, a big win for Trackhouse. But Adam, I wonder what other teams in the garage area said, if they can do it, we can do it. Does it motivate the rest of the garage?
Well, you talk about Chastain, and he's been so good at this racetrack, but this is a place that is a challenge for everyone, Dale.
Yeah, concrete in general is a challenge for everyone. It's an acquired taste. I mean, asphalt's kind of like the domestic light, and this is the craft beer. So, you know, it takes you a while to really understand where the grip is. It gives you a lot of false, a false sense of security, and it can bite you. And there's some really big bumps out there, especially down in 3 and 4. So a real challenging racetrack.
Well, if it's a craft beer, it's one of those fruity craft beers. It's a little bit odd because there's nothing about the racetrack that's really like anywhere else. You mentioned the surface, but really the size, the grip level, the banking, it's just an oddball, right? You still want to win. But I'm not sure what track you compare it to. When you build your setup here, do you look at where we ran the tires? Do you look where you ran well? I'm just not sure the approach is going to be interesting to see here in practice who hits it right.
When you said oddball, you were looking at me.
I was getting my motivation.
Hey, let's put some drivers on the board. Who are we watching today and throughout the weekend?
Well, I think Chastain is a guy that we're all going to be watching. We really, all of us thought that this team was in real trouble. Trackhouse in general hadn't had much performance this year, and then he goes out and really surprised a lot of us, I think, at the 600, wins big in big fashion. They come to a racetrack. This is their home track, even though they're located in North Carolina. This is kind of what they think of their home racetrack here. They've had great success here. So can they win 2 in a row when we almost wrote them off earlier in the season?
William Byron did everything but win the Coca-Cola 600 a week ago, so I really have him circled. Can the 24 car kind of stay in the same form? The form was amazing. Maybe 8 laps different is all he was looking for a week ago. So could William Byron come here? He now has that points lead. Is that the momentum? I know it was a sting last week, but stepping away from maybe the loss, everything else was near perfect.
And who could be last year's Joey Logano? If you look back to the race last year, he came out of nowhere to win. So many overtime restarts, just calamity crashes, all kinds of things going on, cars running out of gas, and he was the last one standing, when it propelled him into the playoffs and then into becoming a 3-time champion. Could that happen again tomorrow night?
I know we're coming off the Coke 600, NASCAR's longest night, 5 overtimes at Nashville. Kind of had that same feel a season ago. At the end of the day, it was Joey Logano holding the trophy. Now let's go downstairs and hear from Trevor Bayne.
Well, Adam, you guys were talking about small teams that stood out at Charlotte for the Coke 600. You talked about what could have been for William Byron, but how about a team that checks both of those boxes? Spire Motorsports 77 of Carson Hocevar found himself in 3rd, maybe battling for a win for the Coke 600, but had that engine expire on the first lap of the final stage. I talked to these guys, and he said, man, as disappointed as we were about that finish, there are a lot of positives to take from the fact that we can now contend for wins. Carson Hocevar is one to watch here in Nashville, Marty.
Trevor, after a week of celebration for Ross Chastain after the big win in Charlotte, the biggest question coming into Nashville is, have you gotten used to the weight of your Coca-Cola 600 win ring? You haven't taken that thing off since Sunday night.
I did, Marty, for Xfinity practice and qualifying there for our acceptance Chevy. I didn't want to throw my hands off in the car. I don't think it'll fit under my Sparco glove either, but no, the rest of the week, just off to wash my hands. Incredible week of celebrating. Starting right there in victory lane on the front stretch with you, and then going into the week, took Tuesday, Wednesday to work on Nashville, and then came over here early. A lot of appearances, a lot of sponsors here in Nashville, where Trackhouse was really born.
You could make an argument, but before the Charlotte win even, that this, Nashville, is maybe your best racetrack. When I asked Phil Surgeon about that, he said, you know, the comfort it brings is I know our notebook is good. What do you think about going into this practice session today?
I know that I went a whole lot faster once Phil Surgeon was my crew chief. So that's what I say, is once I got with this group in 21, we've been fast. So from there, yeah, I would say so, but we've had good cars at Charlotte as well, and we nailed the balance at the end of the Coca-Cola 600. And it was small adjustments, but for Team Chevy and Trackhouse to take that jockey Chevy drive to the front from, I think, 8 seconds back, past 2 iconic cars, a car I grew up rooting for, the 24, and passing for the World 600 win, and take that Coke machine home was really cool. And all that doesn't matter now. It's back to work.
Cars have rolled, Adam, and yes, the celebration for this Trackhouse team officially now over. It's all about Nashville.
I look at Ross Chastain, 6 career wins, 6 different racetracks, and as Marty talks about, been really, really good right here at Nashville Superspeedway. Give us the setup of what we're about to watch here rules-wise.
Yeah, so field basically split in 2 groups. Both groups get 25 minutes each, and then everybody gets combined again, runs 1 lap of qualifying. How fast you are is where you start. No split in the finishing order of the groups. A lot of cars on track already, though. We saw a truck race last night, Xfinity cars today, so this concrete surface already has a little bit of color to it for the Goodyear tires kind of wearing into it. I think that's going to help the 2 groups be pretty equal.
Talked about a lot of drivers. Haven't mentioned the 5 of Kyle Larson. So good when it comes to Nashville.
He's good everywhere. So, I mean, it's kind of repetitive. Every track we go to, well, here's his stats. They're better than everyone else's. You know, just a dominant team. They had a rough go at the 600. You got to wonder, coming out of the Indy 500 experience, the 600 experience, is there much of a hangover? You know he wants to get back to the racetrack, just get back behind the wheel of a race car and go out there and perform. So it starts right here, right now. And, yeah, they're working around that racetrack. Things are looking pretty good.
You mentioned it. It was a busy day, busy Sunday and Memorial Day weekend for Kyle Larson, attempting the double, which started up in Indiana, right? He went up there, ran the Indy 500, wrecked out, then came down to the 600, and then just a mistake, a rare mistake out of the driver of the 5. Loses rear grip, goes around, running near the front, and then later in the day, a little bit wrong place, wrong time, and this ends up ending his day. He thought he was going to sneak by the bottom. That contact, damage to the right rear.
Yeah, after that early spin, went a lap down, got the free pass, was back on the lead lap, running right around 20th, thought he had a chance for a nice comeback, and then caught up in that accident, ending his day.
He's kind of down the board right now in 12th overall, as these cars are all starting to run faster and faster. Ain't stuck behind this 41 here of Cole Custer.
How about this? Carson Hocevar kind of picking up where he left off. So good in the 600. Ends up having an engine expire. Was frustrated on the radio. I said this last week. I'll repeat it again. I don't care what the stats say or the finishing order says for Carson Hocevar. What happened last week, his ability to run up front all night long, all those restarts, all those opportunities around some of the biggest stars, right there is when the engine finally let go. He's a better race car driver unloading here, Dale, with that experience he had last night running up front.
Yeah, and it's got me excited about what's to come with this driver. What happens is he's starting to build toward the playoffs. Can this team secure themselves a spot in the playoffs? I think that'd be a big surprise to the season. He's more fun each and every week as he continues to build confidence. The team's got a lot of confidence. They continue to run better. He ran 16th here last year, so a pretty solid run in the race this past season. But and he's, you know, he's only 32 points out of that bubble. I know they're probably looking at winning a race to lock themselves in. Nobody's came from that far back at this point in the season to point their way in, but this team could do it.
Let's go to Chris Buescher, driver 17, and they had a good week off track because a portion of that penalty that they had received post-Kansas was amended. They've got themselves right back in the game when you talk about that cut line.
Simple enough. There were 2 infractions post-Kansas. One had to do with the nose of the race car. The other had to do with some block-off plates that work around the exhaust. When they went to the appellate board, they said, yep, guilty as charged on the nose, but these other plates, we don't believe, between the rules and how they're written and what they did, that infraction is accurate. For that reason, as you point, they get a 30-point midweek bonus. 30 points added back into this 17 car. Crew chief back. He already has served his suspension, so for sure things are looking up.
It's nice when you don't have to tighten the lug nut and you can get 30 points, right?
Absolutely. These teams are running about their fastest lap, around 6 laps into the run, 7 laps into the run. Some knocking off speed a little quicker than that, but
here's what you've been talking about, Dale, and just how tight it is. 27 points separate Stenhouse down to Nemechek in 21st.
And I'll tell you that a lot of those drivers that we see on that list, they all watched that Buescher penalty turnover, and they did not like it because they were in such a better shape just racing amongst each other, and now you've thrown another guy into the mix, and that's disappointing. I know they probably wouldn't admit that publicly, but they all know now that Buescher is a very accomplished driver that can go in there and point his way in if he doesn't get the win. So they're all looking at that bubble. They're going to outplay it over the next couple of weeks. We're going to ask them about it, but it's absolutely the most important thing going on in their sport, in their year right now.
The other thought on that, and we saw it late last year in the regular season, drivers from well below the cut line winning a race, and what that does to change the complexion on everything, Marty.
Adam, 5 minutes ago, A.J. Allmendinger's car was on the grid. He is in Group 2, not this group, but then NASCAR officials made them come back to the garage area, and they're making them go back through the inspection process. I talked to crew chief Trent Owens a moment ago. He said that NASCAR thought what they saw what they thought was maybe a crew member underneath the car doing something to the underbody, so NASCAR made them come back through the whole inspection process. They've done the underbody scan already. They still have to go through the Hawkeye as well. Steve, I'm wondering, have you ever been called to the principal's office in the middle of a school day? Because that's in essence what's going on with A.J. Allmendinger's team.
Unfortunately, if there's a way to probably get in trouble, I've probably found it over my NASCAR career of 20 years in the garage. But, you know, whether they did something or not, I think NASCAR does the right thing. The details of these cars, the angle of the split, the angle of the floor, all of those things can be easily verified by pushing the car back through inspection, as Marty pointed out, Group 2. So not currently losing any practice time.
I imagine we'll see that video or whatever they believe they saw at some point. And can't imagine they would take a guess on that, bringing somebody to the garage like that. Gibbs out there running some laps, third fastest. This is a driver that struggled this year. Disappointed, looking for a great run. They thought they might get it last weekend, had a pretty good qualifying effort in Charlotte, but just fell back as soon as the green flag dropped at him. And hopefully maybe coming in here to try to rebound or get their season on the right track.
No doubt he's been frustrated. You talked about the disappointment last week, and maybe what even heightens his disappointment is the fact that his teammates ran really well when you look at Joe Gibbs Racing at Charlotte last week.
Yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing hadn't had the best mile-and-a-half year, but I thought they really did turn it around, to your point, but the 54 was still just a step behind his teammates.
8 minutes into Group 1 practice at Nashville. Hocevar top of the board.
We all have moments too important to miss. Exxon and Mobil stations are here to fuel.
Look at the overall average, pretty good there as well.
Great average, and for Blaney, his fastest lap was his 12th lap on the tires. And for, you know, I instantly start thinking ahead to the race that qualifying is going to be crucial. You know, you just don't have this dramatic fall off. This left side tire is new for Nashville. We've seen it at Las Vegas and other tracks. They went a little bit faster at all those tracks. So I think we have a chance to see a track record here today in qualifying.
Let's take a look at the 10 lap averages so far. With Blaney on top, Hocevar doing a great job. Suarez, this guy right here needs a good run. They have had a disastrous year with that 99. He's got to be building momentum, excited to go to Mexico here, racing in front of his home crowd. But a great run this weekend would get them started in the right direction.
You really look at all those drivers up there in the top 5, top 6, and you can make a case they need something to get them jump-started, you know?
Corey Heim right there, 9th. Just a couple races this year, trying to get his feet wet. Everybody expects him to be a cup driver here soon for 23-11. Booty Barker on top of the pit box for that 67. I don't know whether I need to be surprised by that or not. You know, everybody talks this kid up like he's special, and we're seeing those results on the racetrack in practice.
On board. I was going to say, we're on board with John Hunter Nemechek right here, this Toyota on board. And two things that jump out to me about Nashville. The first thing is down here in 1 and 2, this big, wide, arcing entrance just dreams, begs you to carry too much speed. And then you get right here, and there's still more corner. Like where you think you should be back wide open, there's just not enough room on corner X. You have to be very patient. And then, Dale, at this end of the racetrack, you're going to see a patch that's been ground, but still a little content, some bumps of the track.
Yeah, so you'll see that patch right there. They're coming up on it right here. There's a bump, and then there's a newer bump or a bump that's gotten worse right here on corner exit. So what worries me about that, so the patch is ground at the bottom of the racetrack. Is that bump bad above the patch or above where they grounded? Is it smoother up there? Can I go up there and get some relief late in the race? And then on corner exit, the same thing we talked about at the 600. When there's a car on your left side, it makes you tight. Being the outside car, you get tight on corner exit. Now you're going to have that plus a bump to deal with. We may have some cars, you know, finish themselves off in the outside wall off turn 4. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. Trevor.
Yeah, Justin Haley, another one of those Spire cars, is showing some speed here in practice. Best finish at 10th this year at Homestead, so obviously when his teammates are battling like Carson Hocevar was last weekend for a win, he wants to contend for that. He's really happy with his car right now. The biggest thing they're working on is that arc into turn 1 and 2. We know at Nashville how much that exit on turn 2 pays off, so these spotters are getting their money's worth, trying to get their drivers in the right spot on the racetrack.
It's great info from Trevor. Just, you know, as a crew chief, I always seem to struggle during practice because you just can't see much from pit road, right? So you're really asking for that spotter on the roof to just help us. I feel like the tracks have all widened out over the last 3 or 4 years with this style of car. So the information you need from the guy on the roof is more important than ever. You're just kind of so limited on for information when you're down on pit road.
38 is Zane Smith, driving for Front Row Motorsports. He crashed out last week in the Coke 600. He was another one of those drivers, though, that was flirting with the playoff cut line. And we'll show you what happened. Here it is.
Yeah, just got loose up off the top of turn 2. SVG gets into the back of him, but he was wrecking already. Sends him down to the inside wall, just a really hard hit. But he comes into Nashville, 1 start here last year and a 2nd place finish. There was chaos at the end of the race. He benefited from most of that, but still, I like the kid's racecraft. I think you put him in some good stuff, and he's going to get you the results.
Well, it's right there, right? That's what you're liking, Dale. And Zane Smith is nearly 9 positions better than he was at this same position of the year, right? So you want to talk about a driver who is starting to head the right direction, trajectory correct. We talk a lot about winning and all these different things, but you and I have done this, right? And we've tried to improve, and it is a grind week in and week out to try to find these small incremental gains. And Zane Smith, he leads the pack as drivers who have found the biggest gain compared to last year.
What's up, Marty?
Adam, a moment ago on the radio after his first run, Chris Buescher told Scott Graves, we're in the game with our setup. But he, like every other driver, talking about exactly what Junior mentioned a moment ago, the bumps through 3 and 4. Listen.
Bumps in middle of 3 and 4, and then there's one kind of late exit of 4. Have to have a lift across them. Could just feel like it hit limiter or the racetrack step out. And then the last couple laps, I felt like it was getting better, but I was also entering higher and kind of pointing across it a little straighter.
And Junior, he also said something else on the radio. He said, I'm having to rethink how I do 3 and 4. So these drivers kind of on the fly are having to reinvent how they approach turns 3 and 4 here at Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely, Marty, and it's going to be a challenge. You see where it's ground right there in the bottom 2 grooves, and if you go above that, I'm curious if you get some relief and more comfort, because we're going to see these teams widen this groove out. There'll be a middle and a 3rd, maybe even a 4th groove at times. And so the teams will try to take advantage of that. They'll be up there in practice actually seeing how that balance is, even though that'll be a slower lap time today compared to the race running high up the racetrack. You got to go up there and see what your car does. But they're all having to adjust. Every time you go back to a racetrack, the bumps change, Steve.
The bumps change, and with this car, they're so close to the limiting factors of the suspension. That's really what they talk about, how the driver goes through it. Dale, you know, you can enter it at 10 degrees compared to 0 degrees compared to 15 degrees, and it completely changed how the rear suspension loads. Like, let's just take a look at the 17. Look at the front and the back. I mean, that big hop in the back, that's, you know, fractions of an inch. we're talking thousandths of an inch is what these cars are set to. So when that thing moves at that amount and then even way up on corner exit, I'm with you, Dale. That late bump in traffic, that could get your attention late in a run.
9 minutes remains. Group 1 practice at Nashville. Hocevar, Wallace, Gibbs, your top 3.
Who's in the Penske Racing Hall of Fame. I mean, he has been a fixture there. Austin said it, you know, it's business as usual for him. I thought it was very mature about it, and I wonder how long this will carry forward. But I'll tell you, as we see Cindric hit pit road, I think the question's been answered for me out of his teammate, the 12 of Ryan Blaney. I think he is number 1, the absolute best car here in Group 1. Maybe didn't fire off great for the first 5 laps. There you go. That's the only weakness I'm going to be able to find, right? Because once you get any longer, 10, 20, 30 laps out, Dale, I love what I'm seeing out of this 12.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how the other 2 Penske cars, actually the 22 and the Wood Brothers 21, do in P2. But right now, yeah, this car here is dominant, comparable to the rest of the field. Cindric not quite as quick. He's sitting around 6th in 15 lap average. A little work to do on that 2 car, but Blaney has this particular group of cars covered.
Another indicator that he likes his car, staying out there for a long time, logging a bunch of laps. When you don't have to come down and make adjustments, it makes a major statement to the body language of your day. 48 Alex Bowman, been on a bit of a slide lately, and this has been a challenging track for the driver at Hendrick Motorsports, currently showing 8th in practice.
Yeah, Alex Bowman, you know, the Ally Chevy, the Ally was the title sponsor here for quite some time, but if you look at his last few starts here at a 14th, 17th, 36th, 14th, you know, just okay is really kind of what I would say, right? Not good, not to what this team, Hendrick Motorsports, Alex wants out of his car here, so they're definitely looking for a different feel. And once again today, I think they're kind of same thing. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're standout. They're going to just need to have a really efficient day if this is the overall speed of the 48.
Yeah, right now he's sitting 6th on 10 lap average. A little bit of work to do on this 48, Marty.
Junior just keeping you updated on the A.J. Allmendinger inspection situation, and he's in the same exact spot he was the last time we showed you his car because they failed the first underbody inspection. NASCAR made them make an adjustment, and now they're starting the whole process again. But 14, or actually a little under 14 minutes until Group 2 goes. That's where A.J. Allmendinger is practicing today. Just checked in with Trent Owens, the crew chief, seconds ago. He said, I think we will make it. We should be fine. But again, it got to be a distraction for this team to still be in inspection while everybody else is out on the track practicing.
An absolute distraction and a great look back exactly how NASCAR inspects this car. So this car is up on a platform where the bottom of the car actually gets scanned, and the screens in front of those officials, you know, it's like a color scan. You know, green good, red bad. You're allowed so much of a tolerance, and you get some layered coloring in. And you know, it seems overkill, but that's what this has come down to, just the smallest amount. This floor pan looks smooth from underneath, but there's these vertical adjusters all above them connecting it to the car, and you want to get this perfect shape where you want it flat. Some places you want it curved, and we're talking the thickness of a credit card. It's a small amount of adjustment that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think the concern is that car getting slower as it's sitting in the garage. Is NASCAR asking for changes? Are they going to find themselves in any kind of trouble? Is there something found that NASCAR didn't like? You're watching the 99 of Suarez trying to do a quick pit entry, and that's the way you do it. I mean, you push the car beyond the limit, try to find out what's too much, trying to get to pit road. Pit road entry is very, very challenging. The transition off of the banking onto the flat pit road is really aggressive and abrupt. So you can easily get yourself in trouble, but you got to push hard.
He's going to take another run at it, right hand out the window. Oh boy.
3, 2, 1, here.
Yeah, that was a handful as he's coming around the corner, and they're going to do this on much, much older tires later in the race, and you can see how challenging it could be for the teams, but they got to maximize every inch of this racetrack to try to be great. And you see, again, Blaney doing the same thing. He misses pit entry, just trying to push a little bit too hard. I always felt like, though, you had to do that, Steve. We'd go testing at the road courses, and I wanted to spin out in every corner,
right,
to find out where the grip was. And here's Blaney, just too nervous to turn down.
And look, the last 2 races here, the first stage has gone green, so it wouldn't shock me to see, green flag pit stop even in that first stage, Trevor.
Yeah, guys, the funny thing is Ryan Blaney must be in love with this race car, because his crew chief has told him 3 or 4 times now, I think, hey, you can do a hot pit road entry this time if you want. And Blaney just keeps on running. That car really good on the lap average, as you mentioned. No fall off there. And they were just talking about how low he could stay on exit underneath those bumps better than anybody.
It's remarkable to me when you look at Blaney. 5 DNFs in 13 races this year. But all of those stage points have got a very comfortable advantage over the cut line. You feel like it's a matter of time before they go to victory lane, but they are doing all the little things well to make sure that even though they've had the adversities, they're in a good spot as we head toward the second half of the regular season.
It's not a go problem for the 12. It's a finish
Not at
problem
all.
because when it's time to go, this 12 car just has raw pace. I'd rather have it that way. While it perhaps is more frustrating when you're not getting the finishes, nothing is more frustrating than just slow, not understanding why you can't keep up on the racetrack.
Quiet practice for Kyle Larson. I'm not sure that's good for the competition, really, right? He just kind of laying in the weeds, and you look, he's down there 10th overall on the board, but 3rd as he's shown right now in our lap average.
Yeah, I was that's overall, but he's 9th on 10 lap, and he's 8th on 15 lap. But we saw the same thing last year, and he drove out into the lead before he crashed out of the 600. So I saw him and mentioned it early in this practice. He was kind of behind some lap traffic there, and that was probably costing him a lot of lap time. So he's not able to really get those early, first 5 to 6 laps down that he needed to. So there's probably a lot more pace in this 5 car than what we're seeing right here.
Group 1 practice is done. I just think about last couple of races on concrete at Bristol, and I know there's not a lot of connection, but when it comes to concrete racing in Tennessee, Kyle Larson's really, really good. Hocevar.
car did in practice without all the trouble last week. You know, at the Coke 600, the one car came out screaming fast. Ryan was able to do that today. And, you know, albeit things are on the bottom right now, you know, the groove hasn't moved around a lot, but that 12 car is lights out fast.
I agree. And we've heard nothing but bumps. It's bump. We heard it bumpy last week. It's bumpy this week. You might ask the question, why don't you just raise it up and go over the bumps better? Because you pay a penalty the rest of the lap. So the crew chiefs are sitting there, buddy, you just got to deal with it, Carl, because this thing's going to be bumpy in one spot to get around the rest of the track at maximum grip.
Okay, and so when we watch these cars go over the bumps, and you know, after thinking about how these cars respond to bumps, the guys did a really good job up there. You know, Dale pointed out that that last bump off of 4 is going to be where people are racing, you know, as hard as they can, side by side, and that's going to either make the nose bounce or the rear.
Well, when I'm racing you, Carl, on a restart, and I'm off of 4, and I'm like, oh, finish, bump, and I'm up.
Right.
We see guys backwards in the grass every race here.
And one thing I listened to Denny's podcast this week, I was shocked at how much Denny gives away about his driving. I mean, if he's got more in there, I don't know what he's got, because he was talking about how he sets his car up. And so my question for you, in a sense, and maybe to comment, is that right now the groove's on the bottom. It's going to keep moving up. And like Denny said, at a track like this, where Letarte astutely pointed out the lap times aren't falling off, you're going to have to move to different grooves. You got to know how your car is going to handle. How do these guys do this in this practice right now where you can't move off the bottom?
Well, this racetrack's going to bait you in because right now it's overcast, but it's still sunlight, so the track's going to have less grip than it does tonight or tomorrow when we fire off. So these crew chiefs are going to talk themselves into, I think we can sneak this thing down 60 thousandths. Pace gets wicked up. We're going to be in the bump stop even more, and guys are going to be even more complaining about it tomorrow night.
Okay, but specifically for me, if I'm a driver, I'm out here and I'm not Ryan Blaney, I'm going to say, man, you know, this place, we're kind of running the same lap time. The tires are holding up. I really want to know how this thing runs on top. You know, and we're not seeing them able to move up there right now. Is the second group going to be able to move up like that?
I hope, but there's such an emphasis put on a team to make your 10-lap average look good. And if your 10-lap average is going to look good, it might be short-term validation if you're in the top 10, top 15, but if you don't, to your point, experiment with lane 2 or 3, you might not know what it looks like when it starts to migrate up that high.
Yeah, and you know, for Danielle, you know this, but how many times in your career has somebody come down and ripped the sheet and said, forget where you're at on the dang sheet, make sure the car handles like you want, make sure you can move around, make sure you're comfortable. So that's kind of odd to know that these guys are stressing over an average when really the goal is to win the race.
Well, unfortunately, Carl, you and I were, and Dale up in the booth, are just competitors. It doesn't matter if we're racing to the ice cream stand, I'm going to try to beat you. So these guys are uber competitive, but that lends its hand to guys like Denny who might not look at that sheet. I know how I want to fuel my car. Adam mentioned that the 5 car wasn't that sexy in practice, but you know those guys are going to be there. But one thing that I'm curious, I want you guys to watch next practice is the timing of the downshift into turn 1, because that's a unique thing with this car, Carl. You're in between 5th gear and 4th gear. And the transaxle, the timing of when you push that thing to 4th really affects where you do that and how much. If you get a little bit loose in, you might have grabbed it too early. If you go too late, the transaxle might be bogged down and a little bit tight. So everybody has their own little way to do that. It's interesting to hear the difference of those downshifts.
I know you guys said you liked Blaney in practice, Group 1. He finished 6th in this race 1 year ago, and Penske really looking for a bounce back, coming off a disappointing Coke 600 collectively for that group. But how about a tip of the cap to Spire? You heard the guys in the booth talking about it. Hocevar leading the way, but Justin Haley looked strong as well.
Thank you for bringing up Hocevar, because I was talking to Ryan Preece this morning, and he said, you know, you're not going to see me at the top of the sheet because I'm not going to fire this thing off and just full commit. And I'm learning about Hocevar. I look at the first few laps. He's on like a full aggression mode right now.
Yeah, he comes out of the truck in qualifying mode. The team is confident that he can go out there and rip the fastest lap of the day. It's 2 weeks in a row he's been top of the sheet in practice. But we've also seen Ryan Preece. It's funny using that. He's had some big wrecks. Carson
there you go.
Doesn't know what he doesn't know. So he's going to go rip that 77 Camaro into 1 and not really think twice about it. Like, I want to see my number at the top of the sheet. I don't really care what happens.
Wisdom has a price, and hopefully Carson doesn't have to pay it.
I know it.
Adam, you said the post-race at Charlotte went long. These guys could keep going, but I've got to take a break so we can get to Group 2. More analysis from Carl and Corey coming up, but AA, Dale, and Stevie on the other side of the break. Stay with us from Nashville.
The following stunts are performed by professionals. Don't try this shit.
Hey, I'm not a good shopper, and they did give me a shirt. I was like, it fits nice, and yeah, I hate to admit how many shirts I have. I got like 3 shirts to wear, and so this is one of them.
Well, you should have put on some pants too, because you're not wearing any.
Oh, I'm staying right here. Staying right here.
Okay, this is a family show. For the record, AA, he does have shorts on.
Shorts.
Just want to clear that up.
I would say we call him Concrete Carl. We call him Cousin Carl. As it turns out, if it's free, it's for me, right?
Exactly.
All right, and here's how he got the name. So good at this place. Didn't matter. Xfinity trucks, whatever, and sticks the landing.
See, those were the days. I didn't have to pick a shirt. You just wear the fire suit. This was so much fun. We'd come here, we'd run well, and yeah, definitely probably can't do that anymore. But going up in the crowd, so many fun fans here. It's just special memories.
I was afraid we were going to show all those wins. We were going to miss this whole group of practice.
That's right, yeah, and it's time for qualifying on Prime.
Interesting, the mix. The mix of cars, because of kind of the jumbled up finish we've already seen, Hocevar and Gibbs and LaJoy have already gone, or excuse me, LaJoy, Hocevar, Gibbs and Larson already on the racetrack. So let's see if this group has any better of a racetrack or if the pace is about the same.
LaJoy loves the fact that you confuse him with Larson.
I know.
You know that? I mean, that's a really good compliment to him.
I'm never going to live it down.
Yeah, the 16 of A.J. Allmendinger, who's been in the garage going back through technical inspection, is being held 10 minutes in this practice by NASCAR Steve. An adjustment violation.
Yeah, so obviously when they put it back through, you heard Marty say he didn't pass the first time, which we'll assume he passed when he went to pit road and then didn't pass the next time, so it had to be some sort of issue. Caution on the racetrack. The 8 of Kyle Busch is around through the grass.
I'm amazed that this team is
loose over the bump.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking right there. Sorry, Adam.
Loose before the bump.
He just
out on entry.
He just gives us the information right there. So the bump was not the direct cause of the spin, but he's talking about how loose he is as he heads off into the turn.
It just seems like if it can go wrong, it does go wrong for the 18. But on the other side of that, they come in inside of 15 points when you look at that playoff cut line. So if they can do anything at all to find it in the second half of the regular season, I think they can put themselves in a pretty good spot to make the playoffs.
They're still in it. Only 14 points out. Let's take a look at the replay here. It's Kyle. That's middle of 3 and 4 and just gets loose and luckily doesn't slide up into the outside retaining wall and down toward pit road. But said he was loose before the bump, but that was right around the middle of the corner where the car actually comes around. I would say this too. I'm really impressed by the professionalism from Kyle Busch as he's going through some of the toughest years in his career. And this is not easy to remain, calm, not let your emotions get the best of you. He's got to talk to the media every single week, and he still remains committed to finding a way to get RCR back to victory lane. I'm really, really impressed with that because we have never seen him go through something like this. I don't think he has ever went through anything like this in terms of struggling week in and week out and having these type of things. Last week it was the steering rack. This week an early spin out with the balance being off the car. And his ability to sort of stay buckled down. We got another car going through the
Josh Berry.
Yeah. Man.
Busy here early.
Bump and it just stepped out.
There you go, hit the bunt and it stepped out. That's what Josh Berry said.
So, we're seeing this in the second group. Do you think the teams that went out first got a good look at, what their travels, bump loads, all those things? Are the other teams trying to do things that trying to get more out of
I wonder
travel?
If these guys are just attacking it earlier, as we ride on board right here with Barry, you're going to hear him pick up the throttle right there over the bump and around it goes. To your point, Dale, I think that all of these cars, well, you wanted to see the 2 Penske cars in the second practice. They have information from the first practice. They may make adjustments. They may feel like the track is a little more ready, so they attack it harder right away. And 2 big moments.
It's wild that bump, once, that bump sort of sets the car sideways, you lose traction. Really isn't any room to save it. This next-gen car has such a small window of forgiveness. Once it does step out, there's not much a driver can do.
I'll say this, the grass is playing nice.
It really is.
Last week we had the turf, so you kind of anticipate you can slide through the front straightaway, infield, and the ball field and get away with it. Here, I mean, you just anybody's guess. You see some divots down there. You see the storm drain. But the reality is for 2 cars to go down through there and not just tear a splitter off is encouraging.
Well, and this has just made this practice kind of clunky for everyone else. Now you've gone out, heat cycled your tires, caution. You do that a couple different times, and that ruins kind of the read on that first set of tires. Let's listen into the 24.
What's going on out there? I'm not sure. 21 just got a little free way before the heat did, but he kept it straight. Gotcha. I guess the bumps giving these guys fits. Yeah, I was honestly surprised that didn't happen in the first session, but I didn't go over it square, so I'll be careful the first time.
Some great information. He's just as surprised, I think, as we are to see 2 cars have back-to-back issues after a first round of cars really just talk about the bumps, but nobody really spinning out and having any trouble with it.
Just inspecting the tires, make sure they're not flat spotted to go back on the racetrack. The big question is, you pointed out the grass looked like it's playing nice, but that splitter and that diffuser, the setting is just so specific. You know, it doesn't take much to kind of knock that thing less than optimal, right, in a different location. So we'll just have to wait and see if there's any long-standing damage. And here's Kyle basically just loose off the corner.
Watch the hands.
Hey, everybody.
Not even really any warning, right?
Yeah.
What about it, Trevor?
Well, Adam, you know, before practice, talking to the teams, they were all concerned about their speed off of turn 2. How can we get to the gas earlier? But now the defining factor is those bumps. I talked with Carson Hocevar, who was top of the board, and I said, how was the bumps? And he said, I don't know, they were pretty good. I'm just a little free in. Ryan Blaney kind of said his car went good through the bumps. So it seems like the guys who have the speed are going through there with no problem, whereas we see the 21 now having to check this car out as he's gone through the grass.
And remember what Corey said. I thought he did a really nice job of explaining. As a crew chief, I can make the junk bumps a non-issue. They can drive like a dream over the bumps. But remember, this is a contest of speed, not ride quality. So I can raise the car up off the stops. I can make the thing nice and snug. It would drive over the bumps, and you'd give me 2 thumbs up, and then you'd come and look at timing and scoring, and you'd give me 2 thumbs down. And we'd have to lower the car back down to get in an optimal position aerodynamically for this end, where Ross Chastain is right now, heading down to turn 1, the smoother end of the racetrack. I need that car right against the concrete. So I think Corey did a nice job of explaining on, and, you know, it can't be awful, but it's not going to be comfortable.
By the way, NASCAR did add 4 minutes to this group's practice time to make up for the 2 spins and the stop in the action. You talk about Trackhouse and Ross Chastain and what the last week has been like, and the fact this is their home race with team owner Justin Marks living here in the Nashville area. This weekend they're making their 300th start as an organization. So across the board, when you think about the success, the wins that they've been able to put together, Ross making the championship 4, crown jewel last week, I mean, they are doing so many things well and still in the infancy stages of this organization.
And it's a great point. You know, what they've been able to do since coming into the series is fascinating. They came in with an incredibly unique approach to running and building a race team. And Ross, Daniel, they both have taken them to victory lane. They've made them contenders and won one of Ross's biggest races of his career last week at the 600. We saw the excitement and emotion from Ross around that win, but it is, you know, we do grade on a what did you do last week kind of scale in this garage, and this team's had their ups and downs and ebbs and flows in performance, but overarching from start to finish of this organization, just to come in and win races, so difficult competing against some of the more established teams that have been here for decades.
A driver that was kind of in the mix and just ran his fastest lap. I thought he was first, but quickly eclipsed him and jumped him on the board. Denny Hamlin, right? They had that fueling issue last week, took him out of the running, making his 700th start in the series this week. And baby watch with his partner, so a little boy on the way is what I'm hearing. So I think it's got to be like this week is the due date. So there's a lot going on in this 11 car, and this 11 car is bad luck of recent. I mean, Texas has an issue, big fire from an expired engine. This is a car that runs so well. It's just odd when you see this. Then it was a clutch in Kansas, which killed him getting out of the pit box. It finally expired and just finally gave up. And then here, fueling issue for the 11. They were trying to play it very, very close, trying to find a way to overcome pit stop for the 11.
Talk about baby watch. Ryan Truex is on standby and ready to jump behind the wheel if Denny has to depart.
This has been such an interesting track for Denny. Every time that they've been here, the 4 Cup races we've had, I feel like he's had a winning car. Just not
led the most laps here.
Yeah, just doesn't have the results. It's fascinating because he's always in the mix or the battle late in the race, trying to either taking the lead and being in position to win, or battling Chastain or Chase Elliott or someone for the victory, but it doesn't have a win in the win column. So we'd probably like to change that.
Group 2 bringing the heat. 8 of the top 10 right now in practice from this Group 2. And third on the board, Chase Elliott, who won this race 2022.
Yeah, this team has been very consistent this year. They're not getting the overall finishes that their teammate Kyle Larson is getting, but this has been a long form sort of story of improvement. That since he had that injury and was out of the car just a couple years ago, that team has not been the same.
They haven't. And Chase has been pretty vocal about how he feels he's had to change his style to adapt to this car, how this car wants to be driven. And you just wonder, right, he's been able to adapt to be very good and consistent, but I wonder if it's just still not so natural that he just can find that next step. That speed, though, 29.67, that's only a 10th off the track record. I think we're going to see a track record later in qualifying.
Tyler
It's going to be tight, but Joey Logano hangs on and wins.
Thank goodness. Those are the only 4 races for NASCAR's Cup Series. NASCAR Nashville Superspeedway, just outside downtown Nashville. Joey Logano, winning a year ago, goes on to claim the championship, 31st right now in Group 2 practice.
which is shocking after seeing just how great Blaney was. You would expect to have a little bit more raw speed out of this 22, and I would add that I think that this group has more pace overall, whether it's the group of cars or the track itself, but the top 7 are all from this group, which makes that 31st on the speed chart even worse for Logano.
We mentioned how Hamlin has been strong here, but no wins. Reddick looking really good right now. The Toyotas are you know,
Yeah, and keep in mind, last year this 22 car really wasn't in contention for the win until those late race cautions when guys had to pit for fuel. They did win this race. Talked to Joey Logano earlier, and he kind of laughed when I asked him about detuning the cars for Penske. But you can see today they're struggling a little bit for speed. Joey's moving around a lot, asking spotter Coleman Presley, what can I do? Where's the speed at? Right now, they feel like that speed is on entry to turn 3.
Well, no team, I think, manufactures a finish better than this 22 team. Paul Wolf and Joey always seem to find a way, so I wouldn't, if you're a Joey Logano fan, I know they don't look great in practice, but, you know, stick around. You never know what could happen tomorrow night. Back on the track, or finally on the track, the 16 of Allmendinger. Marty's done a nice job of documenting their issues. They had to go back through inspection, held for 10 minutes, and now he's finally out here on the racetrack.
How does this impact a driver? Because you have your routine. You know you're in Group 2. You're going to look at some data, try to figure out where things are with the track and all that before you go out. And then the anxiety of not knowing if you're going to get track time and all that. How do you manage and compartmentalize all that if you're AJ, Dale?
Yeah, I just think you're worried more about what was the issue, right? And these cars are so detailed, and they're fighting over, you know, such fine measurements to have an advantage, right? And so if you think, oh man, what's NASCAR looking at? Why are they dragging us back through? You know, is my car getting slower? I've had a really, you know, AJ has had a very good stretch of races, had a little struggle right there over that bump, and that shows us how difficult that part of the track is. But AJ's in a really good position right now, points-wise. They got some great momentum. They're kind of turning things around at Colleague, and it doesn't take nothing to ruin all of that. Even this little issue here could stub their toe and create a long weekend.
Well, we've seen a mix in drivers between Group 1 and Group 2, and it's really off last week's finishes. I mean, look at Allmendinger, great run. Brad Kate, I mean, 5th. McDowell, Priest, Noah, those good runs are what's kind of motivated and moved these guys into the different groups. It's kind of a metric, points and finishing position. It's how you get split up. So, and I think Group 2 is an advantage. Just I think the track's better. I think you have a whole group to look at. You mentioned that data, Adam, right? You have teammates to look at.
Here's Chase Briscoe coming off his 2nd consecutive top 5 finish, 3rd in the Coke 600, best run of the year, and that was his 5th top 5 finish. How about the fact that this 19 team last year with Truex behind the wheel, and I know things did not go their way in his final full season, they had 5 top 5s throughout the entire 2024 season. It feels to me like Briscoe is finding his way with this group, and the scoreboard doesn't lie most of the time, 5th right now.
Yeah, I mean, a poll last week, it was that penalty with the tire rolling away that really got this 19 car behind. They finally recovered. But those are the ones you ask yourself, what could have been? If you run up front all day long, you know, are you better off? Can you adjust your car? Do you have a better finish? Great job recovering, which is what they didn't do early in the year. Now they're recovered over a mistake. But you just hate to put yourself that far behind, Marty.
And Steve, you guys just talked about Brad Keselowski's 5th at Charlotte last week, the first top 10 of the year for this RFK co-owner and driver as well. And I just talked to Jeremy Bullins. You also mentioned finally in Group 2 for Brad Keselowski when it comes to practice and qualifying. They'll get a better draw later in the session coming up here in a little bit. And Jeremy told me by his unofficial math, this is just the 3rd time this year Brad has been in Group 2. And the first time since Phoenix in March. He said it's just such a massive advantage for us to have more knowledge of the racetrack like you were talking about, Steve. Now he said the goal is we have to continue that and qualify, keep ourselves in Group 2 for the rest of the year, because it honestly puts us behind for the entire weekend when we're the first group to go out.
I'm real surprised to see Brad being competitive here. I know it's been a tough year, but they were in the top 5 of both stages last year at this race. Just didn't get the end result. A lot of people didn't get the end result with the chaos we had at the finish. But this 6 team seems to be turning a corner here at the right point of the season, climbing themselves up through the rankings, but still way down the list in points.
That's what I was going to bring up. The challenge is, I mean, you have to be thinking win, right? The only way this 6 car is going to make the playoffs is either a historic comeback in the points to the likes we have never seen, or wins a race.
Let's take a look at A.J. Allmendinger here going over this bump in 3 and 4. And that car, you know, the bump just bounces the car loose. Corey and Carl Edwards were talking about those bumps out there on the racetrack, and everybody's going to be struggling with that, especially in the race. Think about how difficult that'll be in traffic. 2 or 3 car wide through that corner. Trying to get through there is going to be real tough.
Allmendinger 11th in practice. Reddick, Hamlin, Elliott, Byron, Briscoe, your top 5. It's NASCAR on Prime from Nashville.
What does Texas A&M University stand for?
I admired how dedicated my dad was to racing.
We do it because we don't know any better. This is what we do.
It all comes down to this.
P1 and the 45 for 23.11.
See all the green chips next to the lap time. Those are all cars currently on the racetrack, and it's busy with all the guys near the top. It's hard to compare the 2 groups. I like Blaney in Group 1. Dale and I were just having this conversation during the break. I think Chastain, Hamlin, Reddick, maybe throw a blanket over the 3 of them in this group, Dale.
Yeah, I agree. There's kind of like an A group and a B group. There's kind of like a good group and a bad group, or a middle group. The 9, 24, the 20, they're not too bad. They just need to find a little speed. A.J. Allmendinger, who was held back, he's 11th on the board. He's actually in the top 10 for 10-lap averages, sitting in 8th. So looking at that team, wondering if that was going to be a massive setback. They seem to still have relatively decent speed after what we saw were a couple of eventful first few laps.
You see the numbers for 23.11. The last 5 races just gone a little chilly, right? 0 top 5s, only 1 top 10. And laps led really tells the story of how competitive you are. Only 7. This right here was the holy moly moment last week, is what I've labeled it. Got Dale's attention. I know I got William Byron's attention. I mean, right here, this is wrecked. Amazing that he was able to keep going. I mean, watch this onboard. That to your left is William Byron. Look how far William Byron has to go down. You ask yourself how much this hurt Byron's chances to stay in front of the 1. Not that Reddick, you know, did anything wrong. He was trying to do all he could.
And that's the thing that I find fascinating with the next-gen car, is that overcorrect. We saw a couple cars spin out in this practice earlier, and they just let the car go ahead and slide and spin down the track. But in competition, you have to do everything you can to try to save it. And we saw several cars overcorrect back into that outside wall off of turn 2 because the rack and pinion is so fast. The steering is so much quicker in these cars. Even after several years now, we've had this car for a handful of years, and their muscle memory and understanding of adjusting and chasing the race car around has gotten really fine-tuned. They still have those moments like that where they drive the car into the wall.
The eventful day continues for the 16 of AJ Allmendinger. First it was inspection issues. Now listen to this right here. Corey talked about the shifting. So he reaches over in what I expect would be a 4th to 5th gear shift that looked like an upshift. And now remember, this isn't like an H pattern. There's not a neutral. You don't go through neutral. It's direct like a motorcycle. Neutral's kind of all the way forward with the shifter. So that sounded really odd, like it did maybe go all the way into 5th and maybe would bounce back and forth between them. But you have to ask yourself, is there damage done to the gearbox? Is there damage done to the engine with some sort of over rev or a situation like that? Sounded really messy though for the 16.
Is there some data that you can look at on that? I mean, you go back to that and say, it may be this bad or maybe not so much based on what you're seeing?
Yes and no. There is data, but you have to, you just can't plug in every time the car comes in. You have to have their specific rules. Here in practice, you can plug in and get the data, but once you go to the qualifying, you can't. So I'm sure the team will download it and make sure there's not a bigger issue for the 16. Trevor?
Well, Adam and Steve and Dale, you guys know about the SMT tool that we have, how important that is to drivers to compare. The shifting is something everybody wonders about here. Should I go to 5th gear down the backstretch? Should I not? Well, that tool is down right now. Nobody has telemetry to look at any other team to see where they're getting on the throttle at, where they're shifting, and that kind of threw a lot of people into disarray. And again, back to those spotters to lean on them to see what they need.
It's like an open notes test and they threw away your notes, Trevor. That's not going to work.
Yeah, that's right. And I do want to touch on this 19 car here as well, Steve. He looked pretty good for that first 28 laps. As you guys talked about the long run speed, was able to run those 30 flats for a long time. At the end of that run, it fell off a little bit harder than they wanted it to. Thought he was running up the track a little bit higher, but man, for 30 laps, they were pretty lights out.
I want to go back to last week. Steve referenced the fact that they had the penalty on pit road after qualifying on the pole, but you still finish in the top 5. I know ultimately you want to be up there all day to get the stage points. But if for a team like this that's still finding their way with a new driver, if you can overcome something to have a good day, in the long run, does that do more for you?
Well, what they talked about and what Briscoe has discussed with me is if they can figure out how to qualify as well as they race, that will solve a lot of their issues. I think that he's came into this program a bit, under driving the car in qualifying, not really trusting its ability and not really understanding just how good this car could perform in qualifying. And once they iron those out, and that's what you saw last week. He goes out there, has a great qualifying run, builds a ton of confidence, and we're starting to see that team really. You're starting to see him perform like we're seeing Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin start to perform.
Well, you mentioned, confidence. I think that's what William Byron has in this 24 after last week. I think this car, you mentioned it, I think it's maybe a touch off some of the others, but right there in the mix from one good adjustment. And then it's amazing that we're this far in and haven't mentioned Christopher Bell, 8th on this time chart, always a competitor. Kind of every racetrack we go to, Bell has a chance.
Yeah. Looking at the lap times, Chase Elliott, Bell, Byron, those 3 are sort of off of the 11, the 45, the 1 maybe, and the 19. Just a touch. I mean, it's so tough to tell. In the race, it could be completely different, and you don't know what kind of traffic they've had in practice or whether they did try to go up the racetracks, like Trevor said, to try that high line and see how the car feels up there, give up a little bit of lap time and hurt that overall. But everyone, it's amazing to me really how tight the lap times are. It's literally a half a tenth. It's 20 spots. If you have a tenth, you could go from 30th to 15th. That's nothing on this racetrack. It's a blip.
There's going to be some pressure on all these drivers for qualifying because, I mean, broken record, you could say it every week, but I just go to the importance of track position. You think about the importance of pit road, it's all magnified. Go out and lay one down, and you can really make your Sunday evening a whole lot easier, at least start in front of the 8 ball instead of behind it.
And you have to do that with so much confidence. You're going to be going faster over the bumps. You're going to load the car harder on the stops. Everything about that's going to be more uncomfortable, and you got to commit.
Practice is done. Qualifying coming up. Reddick, Hamlin, Elliott,
So it's just that. It's the racetrack. I saw the times were so much faster after we had that caution. You know, we talked about it beforehand. I think it's a preview for every restart tomorrow night. I think the rubber's going to pick up. The track's going to be fast. We got a glimpse of that in practice. I think that's going to play out all night. As we watch the track, you can see here on this time lapse, you know, the rubber picks up, and then under caution, or when a car goes slow, it pulls the rubber back off. But Corey, as a driver out there, you know, did they learn anything right there?
Oh, you're always learning something on the racetrack. I think what I picked up the most is how Jeremy Bolin says being in Group 2 is that much more of an advantage because they can get that bullseye. They're trying to optimize that setup down because they know their teammates were in Group 1 and they can adjust it and get closer for that long run. But what I don't like, I think the 67 with that metric draw going out first, ran a 30.01 in practice. I'm curious how slow this racetrack is as it gets picked back up. I would hate to be going out early in this metric.
But that's going to be a story all night tomorrow night. You know, with this resin, you know, we talked to people that laid down the concrete, people here at the track. They're trying to get that rubber to build on the track, and then it's trying to make this race more dynamic. And that's how we're going to see the 3 lanes. So I thought that was pretty interesting to get a glimpse of that.
You talk about pace. There is nothing slow about Tyler Reddick, and that 45 team needs something good. After the Championship 4 appearance for that group a year ago, what a quiet start to the first half of the regular season it's been for Tyler. Good to see him with speed here.
Well, I've been calling the 45 all week, and I called the 1 last week. You can't win them all if you don't win the first one, so I'm going to try to go 2 for 2. I picked the 45 this week. Talked with Billy Scott, his crew chief, in the hauler this morning. A little bit of a slump, but this is the day. Tomorrow they're going to turn it around, Carl.
Yeah, talking to Dave Rogers, Denny, the guys at Toyota. I mean, everybody's pouring, like we said, tons of tools, resources into this. Does the hair help? I mean, in your history, like your experience, does that haircut help?
I can speak from experience. That hair just weighs you down. It's a high drag. You get a little bit of rear downforce, that thing flapping in the breeze, but it doesn't. It's not slowing down Tyler Reddick right now. Keep it growing, big guy. You need some texture in that thing, though. It's like kind of too straight.
I'll make sure our hair girl Lynn brings some product down to Reddick.
Lynn, go get him dialed.
We'll work on the
in.
mullet a little bit. For more, not on the mullet, let's send it over to Trevor Bain.
Well, we could see your old hand gestures on the screen here, and he said they've got to be talking about my hair. So, Tyler, how much speed does come from your hair? They want to know.
It depends on who you ask in my family, but no, I think the speed, obviously, it's no secret. It's the men and women at 2311. Those that travel on the road crew and everybody back at airspeed. So, yeah, it's really nice to be able to come here to Nashville. First time having the Pinnacle Financial Partners on a Cup car. They've been with me for a long time in my racing career. So it's great to have them in the car here at Nashville, and it's nice to be able to go out there and practice and show the fire-off pace, but also have just good handling and good average, I guess, speed, if you would call it that.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You're top of the board pretty much in every category, but with the field being so tight, very little fall-off, we know qualifying is going to be important. Do you have what you need here, and what does it take for a good qualifying lap at Nashville?
Well, I somehow did it in practice, and it didn't really feel extraordinary. So, yeah, I think everybody's going to be trying to push to run the ultimate lap. And, yeah, we'll just see. I think the bumps in 3 and 4 are going to bite people. It bit a few in practice so far today. But, yeah, you just got to execute the lap, make sure you hit your marks. And it's easier to do that when you have a Toyota Camry as fast as ours is.
Awesome, Tyler. Thank you, and good luck in qualifying.
Thank you, Trevor. It's time now to figure out who's going to start on the pole for the Cracker Barrel 400. For those watching on Facebook and YouTube, coverage continues on Prime Video with qualifying, getting underway in a matter of moments. Thank you, Trevor. It's time now to figure out who's going to start on the pole for the Cracker Barrel 400. For those watching on Facebook and YouTube, coverage continues on Prime Downstairs, Danielle and the fellas with a special guest.
He certainly is, and a fan favorite for sure, AA. Thanks. Let's welcome him in, boys. Driver the number 16, Kaulig Racing Chevrolet, AJ Allmendinger, coming by. Congrats on the solid top 5 last weekend at Charlotte.
Got my family behind me. They're cheering for me. They got the payment this week, so that's
all
good.
All 3 people in your fan club?
Yeah.
They're all
But
back.
no, it was last week was a much needed great run. I felt like we had a lot of speed from practice on, and besides, Ross is probably a little bit happier than me, but other than that, I don't know if there was anybody happier than me after the race. We executed great, and it was just an all-around great night. And yeah, I mean, about lap 270, I thought probably needed Carl Edwards as my trainer because my back started locking up. I was like, I'm getting too old for this 600 miles.
We talked about, AJ, welcome to Prime, by the way. That thing's it looked tremendous last week. We talked about the pylon over there at Charlotte, and you look and it's lap 270, you got 130 left, and you're like, oh my God, is it ever going to end?
Yeah, I don't know if the stage breaks make it better or worse because you're just running 100 laps at a time, 100 laps at a time. In the past, I've been there where you feel like, you run 250 laps and the caution comes out, you're like, man, this race got to be almost over. You look up and it's like lap 120. You're like, how long have I been out here? So I don't know if the stage breaks because after the stage break, you're like, well, that was 100 laps. If it's better or worse. But yeah, it's when you have a race car that handles like that, it makes that race a lot of fun.
You didn't drive that thing like an old guy, though. You drove that thing like a young buck last week, buddy. Good job.
It was unbelievable. And you said, like, I use the word demoralizing when you look up there, but you can't, I mean, you could have had kind of a worse day. You still come up here, you're smiling, you're having fun. And I read a little bit about your team, talking about you as a leader. How do you take today, all the things that have happened, we can talk about some of them, and you're still up here, you're leading your team with that spirit. How important is that to you?
Well, I mean, it's just a part of NASCAR life, right? Like, NASCAR didn't see something they liked while we were sitting down there. We had to go back. My guys did a good job. We got back through there. We only lost 10 or 12 minutes, which the way these practices work, 25 minutes, you almost run out of tire anyway. So it's not like you got to be out there for 25 minutes and, saves me a little energy.
This is why I love you. You are glass half full. AJ is glass half full. We were talking about, we could hear your transmission darn near explode. You're like, nah, nothing I can do about it now.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, the most fun guy ever.
They'll
California cool.
They'll check the RPM range and, can't fix it anyway. This track's, it's not like rough, but it's just got a lot of little undulations in it. And, you're running it to the max RPM as you go to upshift. And I must have just been lazy on it, didn't get it all the way in, and it kind of popped it back into a false neutral, but ran some good lap times after it. So at least held up after that.
It would be such a shame. NASCAR said more penalties may be coming, AJ, because you're in the playoff picture. I mean, what an impressive start to the season. We talk about the Coke 600. I feel like that's just the start. You're 17th in points, really close to a postseason berth.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be that close, really. We've had 3 races this year where we've scored 1 point. We've had 3 DNFs, but for the most part, we've brought a lot of speed to the racetrack. There's only been a couple of races where it felt like we just lacked speed. So I actually don't even really look at the points. Like, the only time I see the points during the week is our social media team will post them, and I'm like, oh, I saw the points. Other than that, I just know if you go out there and run well, the points will take care of themselves.
AJ, we talk about how important qualifying is. It's more important now than ever with pit road selection and track position and all the things. One of the hardest things for me as a driver was to go from race pace to then reshift your mind and know you got to go run 5 or 6 tenths faster. So how do you go shift from practice pace to then go put them on the dash and go qualify?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this car's not as hard as the old car because, the old car, right, we used to tape up and we'd kind of throw in all kinds of qualifying adjustments, and you just kind of knew, okay, like, we're going to have to run anywhere from a half a second to a second faster. Here, you just kind of do your qualifying deltas. In the cars, usually there's a little bit more grip in qualifying, but it's not like you got to go all of a sudden and reset your mind to go run. Heck, especially at the end of a practice, there's times you have to go run 2 seconds faster. So it's just part of it. You go out there, and I'll throw it off in the corner, and hopefully that leaf filter gutter protection Chevy will stick. And if not, I'll make good TV for you guys.
I love this. Throw it off in the corner. That's unbelievable. Your spirit's
AJ,
great, man.
Quickly, any concerns with the car before qualifying? Car feel good?
Car felt fine. There's always concerns about the thing sitting in the driver's seat, so we'll just go work on that.
That knucklehead.
Hey, finish the rest of that Celsius and go lay on.
Oh yeah, I got Celsius here, so I'm going to be jacked up for it. So we'll be ready to go.
Adam, let's send it back up to you.
Corey and the Dinger on the same set is a dangerous game, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Throw in Carl. And Danielle just stirring the pot a little bit.
I noticed that.
Corey Heim, first car out, quickest, 29.89. Move him to second. Here's Zane Smith, 29.76. J.J. Yaley, Chad Fincham also hitting the track. Those are the first 4 cars in qualifying. And now the 99. Paint scheme of the weekend, Tootsie's. In fact, Suarez said if I win, I might just drive straight down to Tootsie's to celebrate a very popular establishment here in Nashville.
It'd be rude for us not to go with him. I mean, it'd just really be rude. If he wins.
See you there.
Yeah, like if he wins and we don't go celebrate with him, that's just, that's very rude.
Zane picked up about 2/10 from his lap in practice. Ran a 96 in practice, 76 here. Let's see what the 99 of Daniel Suarez can do.
I thought it was very telling how AJ talked about that shift that we heard kind of go bad. It sounded like he's like, maybe I just wasn't as committed as I needed to be. Suarez 29.88.
Yeah, he only picked up a 10th, so.
False neutral. False neutral. I hadn't heard that term before, but I kind of like that.
Fastest lap was a 67. Tyler Reddick, you think it's going to be a 30 for the pole?
I think a 30, yeah. If 30 or quicker. I think it's going to be mid to low 29s. Might get a little bit of a thought right here.
Yeah, this will be an interesting lap for sure. Carson was 8th in practice with a 29.86. He's going to need to find a little bit of time. Almost got a fence, it looked like, right there off of turn 2, but he's
the tracker's good to him here. I'm surprised.
He got everything.
My man in his visor up. Every time we go on board Carson, his visor's up.
Intensity in the qualifying lap, and this time at equal speed. Top of the board, 77. Hocevar, 29.75.
So the guys at the desk did a really nice job with the time lapse. It just shows you how much the track changes. And what happens now is one car at a time, it actually picks it up.
Yep.
So I would assume that the track would gain grip.
Yeah.
Like I think as you pick up that slimy rubber, the fresh concrete is going to be better. Now we will see, but
yeah, you'd think the rubber and racetrack is going to be tighter on balance, so these cars that go out there are going to be limited on front grip, and that'll improve as they pick up the rubber and the cars continue to go. Hocevar slowed down, or actually Hocevar picked up a 1/10 as well, from a 86 to a 75 there.
And I think that matters too, is the bogey. If you have no idea what fast is, but like for instance, take Reddick. We talked to Reddick. Well, he knows what that lap time felt like. So now if you say you got to go run a little quicker than that, or he was like, all right, well, I know where I lifted and where I got in the get. Like they have this mental clock to kind of understand how hard you have to go. Like what's the target?
Been a good weekend for Spire. Mentioned earlier, Raja Karuth won a truck race last night. Hocevar leading the way here so far in qualifying, and now Justin Haley was pretty good in Group 1 as well.
Yeah, Garner Trucking on the side of this. I point that out because that's been a partner from Spire way back years, a couple of years now. So as this company grows, it's great to see older partners sticking with them, and a great lap right here.
A little hauler trash talk between teammates. Haley Bess Hocevar, 29.62 for the driver out of Winnemac, Indiana.
Yeah, they need that. They had a little bit of a shake-up mid-season with a crew chief change. Ryan Sparks goes up on top of the pit box as we watch Noah Gregson, the cowboy.
I would say if I was going to go out in Nashville, I'd want to go with Noah, but I couldn't hang for like 30 seconds with him in this town.
This guy right here was the fastest guy in the first practice, one of the most dominating long-run cars in all of practice. 10th up on Haley down into turn 3. Can he commit to the throttle over the bump? Losing a little bit of time right there. Oh, a little bit of movement. Losing that time coming to the line.
He's P1, but as you said, gave a little bit away after hitting the bump in 3 and 4. 29.60 for Blaney. Bubba Wallace, top 10 here a year ago. Had the graphic earlier. He owns the only top 10 finish. Last 5 races for 23.11. Got it done at Talladega Superspeedway. But 3 straight finishes outside the top 30. They need to rebound and start going back the other way on the leaderboard. A lot of green here with our tracker.
Yeah, he's got a good lap going. Let's see if he can have a little bit better. If he just gets through 3 and 4 okay, he'll improve on what Blaney did there. And he's struggling as well over that bump, but not as bad. It's coming back the other way. Steve?
Track record 29.55. Way back with Eric Almirola, 29.52. I think it has no chance of holding up today. That track record already broken with Bubba Wallace.
More Nashville nights. More Motor City speed. More passion unleashed. More history made. More precision displayed. More moments you can't miss. And for the first time, only on Prime. Welcome to NASCAR.
You know, we talk so much about Nashville, great sports town, great food, the wonderful music. Tremendous history here as well, including the Johnny Cash Museum. Steve, you've been there?
I have. It's great. I like the look.
That's right. Black t-shirt under the black polo.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't want to put you on the spot. How much Johnny Cash in the playlist for you?
Me? Yeah, I think there's a little bit in there. I even going to the Grand Ole Opry is pretty awesome. I had the chance to do that over the last couple of years. I'd never been before. I know Steve's been to that as well.
Yep, it was great.
I saw Jelly Roll with Joey Logano last night hanging out. That's a good combo right there. 51. Cody Ware. And hey, speaking of music, did you know he plays a little guitar? Really? Likes to disconnect from the racing world, calm himself down playing a few tunes. That's the best fact I got today on I think that's the fact of the day.
That's the fact of the day.
Bubba Wallace, best time so far, 29:52.
He was only a couple tenths off going into 3, but gave up quite a bit of time through 3 and 4. I think just kind of being conservative. Obviously, with the challenges of how rough the racetrack is at that point. Bubba Wallace right now, I wonder how good he's feeling about that 52, Steve. You think it's going to be a 30 for the pole?
I do. I still feel good. Kyle Larson, big, high, wide entry into 3, coming to the green and already tracking into the green. We'll see how he runs around the bottom here.
Backed up the corner or just didn't get down in there, losing more time. Man, not a great lap.
Won this race 2021, did so in dominating fashion. And we were uncertain where he was after practice because they didn't flash up on the sheet like they normally do.
Yeah.
And qualifying, going to put him 6th of the 12 cars that have been out, 29.77.
With that lap right there and what we saw in practice, this is about as average as I've seen this team in some time. So that'll be worth paying attention to tomorrow to see if, you know, they're just having some hiccups and they get it turned around for race time. But this 5 car right now may have some questions scratching their head a little bit.
I go to last week when we were unsure where they were in practice. He even admitted on the desk with Danielle and Corey and Carl. And then he comes out and bam, puts it on the front row. And you're like, okay, everybody calm down and relax. But definitely a lot of head scratching, as you said today. Trevor?
Yeah, I'm here with Bubba Wallace, currently top of the pylon. Bubba, how good was that lap for you there? How'd it feel?
Oh, it felt good. Man, we've struggled so bad in qualifying here, so we just kind of wanted to take a step back, and it seems to be paying off. We'll see how good the lap is. Proud of our Chumba Casino team. Last week, I'm sorry, but it sucked. It sucked. And so it was nice to just come back here with some speed, and that's a nice thing. And being in the right headspace, you tend to let the bad races go a lot easier now and enjoy the most important things, and that's family, and it allows you to reset. And so comes in here with a clean mind, and that's what I'm enjoying right now. So our car's fast. We'll see how that translates over to tomorrow. But all in all, a good start to the weekend.
All right, great start for 23-11 here in practice and qualifying, Adam.
He's done an outstanding job this year, too, at gaining stage points. Start up front, you got a chance to do it. John Hunter Nemechek next out.
Yeah, he made a mistake right there up the racetrack. You're seeing him bleed all the lap time down the back straightaway, heading the wrong direction. Coming in here, 2 top 10s in the last 3 races, and that could easily be 3. They were running great last week at the 600. Ended up having some misfortune late, but had some real speed. He's going to want to have this one back. Another opportunity to try to do a better job.
Nemechek won the...
It got tight. Just overdrove it a little bit.
There you have it. Got down into the corner too far, hoping the car would turn. It didn't. Slid the front tires up the track. He let the car go up the racetrack, but it cost him at lap time.
Second car from Team Penske, Austin Cindric out. His teammate Ryan Blaney currently second after that 29.60. Let's see what the 2 does.
You see just how fragile that 1 and 2 is, right? You know, John Hunter drives it in there trying to run an impressive lap. Car doesn't work. Cindric backed the corner up a little bit, got in the green, wrapped the bottom, and it just wasn't carrying enough speed, right? So now a little bit better down here in 3 and 4, but this entire 1/10 of a second that he's off was all at one end of the racetrack.
Absolutely. You mentioned it, Steve, how odd this racetrack is, and it's all about that turn 1 entry. It's a big, wide entry, and it makes you believe that you can carry a lot of throttle before you need to lift and turn the car down in the corner. But you end up getting in the middle of the corner going way too fast. So the next time you go down in there, you change everything and you feel like you're underdriving the car. It's a really, really hard turn to hit perfectly.
And now that's one car at a time in qualifying. Wait till tomorrow when they decide we're going to do that at 3 wide and maybe 4 wide and get to the middle of the corner and try to figure it out.
5 thousandths of a second separate Blaney and Cindric, the teammates, and second and third is see Ty Gibbs on track, first from Joe Gibbs Racing.
And every car that goes and can't eclipse Bubba Wallace, he has to start feeling better and better. He wasn't ready to say in the interview with Trevor that that's going to be on the pole. I think you could tell in his voice, or at least, you know, my opinion is he believes there's someone that can run faster than that. But it seems like they just took for a big reset, and so far that reset's working.
I just love his attitude and approach, though, because we talked during practice about their struggles recently. And he just stayed in the game. He's reprioritized his life. He understands everything, being a dad. And you know, here he is finding speed after some rough times in the last month or so. Alex Bowman, a 1/10 and a half off, heading to 3.
A little bit up the racetrack. Oh, look at the car take off when he goes across that bump.
He took that big arc, and it just didn't get to the bottom. And for the fans at home, like, he wants to get to the yellow line. He is turning the wheel, and the car is just not reacting, and he doesn't want to slow down. Like in the race, you could just overslow the car and get it to the bottom, but at qualifying, at some point, you just have to keep the speed going.
Bowman 6th. Teammate Larson down there in the 9th position. Ty Dillon hits the track.
Interesting 1 and 2. He had it going there in the middle. Looked like he lacked some rear grip on corner exit. Just couldn't really commit to the power. That'll be really uncomfortable over these bumps.
Yeah, the back end moved around a little bit right there, but
talk about the speed for Colleague here. Ty Dillon spending some time at the headquarters in Ohio throughout the first pitch at a Guardians game this week. 11th in qualifying right now for the driver from North Carolina of the 18 that had been out. And here's his brother Austin in the 3.
Yeah, Austin has 3 top 10s, all of them coming in the last 5 races. This team seems to be maybe improving slightly over the last several weeks. It's been a tough year, though. Relatively quiet.
Austin won a truck race here 2011, went on to claim the championship that year.
See the hands, see the gloves fighting the
little
wheel.
bounce, huh?
Boy, he was busy.
I bet that bump wasn't here 2011.
So I'll tell you, if I'm any of these cars that have yet to go, I'm really looking at what Bubba Wallace did in 1 and 2, because everyone leaves there about a 10th off. They seem to match Bubba down there in 3 and 4, but what Bubba did in 1 and 2, that appears to be the strength of the 23 car, just comparing others to him.
Austin Dillon ends up 5th. 20th car out, Chris Buescher, top 5 here a season ago, and flashing some green as he comes off turn 2.
He drove down in there and gained on Bubba, but he loses all that momentum, not able to carry the speed on corner exit, but he's not too far off, just to have a 10th here. Backs up the entry. Can he gain some of that back? He does. Look at that exit. Really good corner exit right there coming to the line.
The give and take of a lap at Nashville Super Speedway to the top. Chris Buescher, 29.44 for the Texas native. Just over halfway home, qualifying in Nashville.
Our nation is standing up for American workers, restoring the pride of making products here at home. That's what we do every day. We're America's beverage companies, making American products with American workers in America's hometowns, delivering brands that have been enjoyed for generations, creating good-paying jobs, the kind that require only a strong work ethic. Because we believe in the promise of America and the people who make it great.
All right, get them, hon.
Take that, DirecTV pigeons, and your overpriced satellite TV.
In my day, you had to walk uphill both ways to save money.
Sounds like a lot of hills back then. Now you could just upgrade a dish and save $30 a
month and now get 3 months free.
We go into the prime garage. We know the splitter, the floor pan, the diffuser, that's the underbody. That's where the downforce is made on this next-gen car. It's not the air going over the top. It's actually the air underneath, and it actually vacuums. It pulls the car to the racetrack. So it's a balance. How do the teams adjust? How do you change your balance? How do you get overall speed? The car itself is pretty balanced, but the downforce is low until you lower the back of the car. You squeeze that diffuser down against the racetrack, and the total downforce goes up. The balance goes to the back. So then to get the balance correct, you lower the nose of the car. That moves the aero balance to the front. The trick is you got to kind of have the right aero balance while maintaining as much total downforce as possible. And oh yeah, get it over that bump in turn 3. It's really that simple, Adam. That's all you need to do is get the perfect height in the back, the perfect height in the front, and get it to ride the bumps correctly.
You know, we're doing qualifying, and Steve's over there sitting back, legs crossed, relaxed. You roll that in, well, he's up on the edge of that seat.
He loves it.
Hey, it's great, though, man. It's awesome.
Well, you know, downforce is your friend, right? That is instant grip. Downforce, we talk a lot about tires and grip and that, but downforce is what's pulling that car or pushing that car into the concrete. The more downforce you have, the easier it is to drive.
Shane Van Gisbergen goes 8th, coming off a top 15 finish last week in the Coke 600.
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy with that lap. I know he probably wants to do more, man, but that's not too bad. Out of everybody that's going, be sitting right there kind of in the middle in front of a couple fast cars.
Here's your guy, Steve. You've been popping to 45. We'll see what Reddick's got. Teammate up there in second.
He's going to be all down here. I think he looked good.
He lost the back right there, Steve, but he's still in it. My goodness. Did you see the back of that car sliding off into one?
The time and the look do not line up.
No.
It looked awful, and it is unreal fast. And this is what's going to have everybody scratching their heads, because everything you're supposed to do, this car didn't do, except for this right here. This lap time is what they're looking for. This is going to be a monster lap.
The mullet equals speed. Top of the board, Tyler Reddick, 29.30.
Watch this car go down into turn 1, though, and squat down and slide the back. It's sliding the back. He's chasing it up the racetrack, but he never got off the throttle. That's pretty amazing right there. A lot of drivers would be throttling up just a little bit.
Not even a burp on the tracker, you know what?
And another thing I heard him do was he didn't shift. Right before the flag stand, the car got into the chip, and he thought in his mind, it's probably better for me just to stay full throttle than to shift the car into high gear.
34, Todd Gilliland.
He's had some highlights this year, but these high-speed ovals have not really been the marquee type racetrack with this 34 car. Great at the speedways, a few good runs at the short tracks, but they're definitely looking for something at these higher speed tracks.
19th, Marty.
Let's chat with Chase Elliott and talk about the challenges of Nashville Super Speedway. Everybody talking about the bumps in 3 and 4. So what's more difficult, the bump in the middle of 3 and 4 or the bump on the exit of 4?
Well, for me, probably the bump on the exit. I feel like the one on entry is kind of fine, I felt like. But yeah, the one late in a run up off, I feel like that becomes a challenge. And then obviously how hard you push in traffic kind of makes it worse. So yeah, I thought our KBB Chevy was fast. It did the things I wanted to do. I just didn't have the versatility to be able to move around and be able to move up the track and make any time. It looked like it was a pretty big challenge for everybody that I saw, at least. So hopefully we can put some of that magic in it for tomorrow night, because that'll be a big deal if you can do it.
And Junior, as Chase and I were talking, he said the bump off for 4 is just in such a bad spot because it's right where you're getting back to full throttle.
Yeah, and he talked about it as well. When you're in traffic, you got cars on your inside. It's taking the car and changing the balance, making it tight. So you're going over that bump in a different way with a different balance. Also with the wall approaching. So they're going to have their hands full late in the run. We'll be having a lot of fun watching them. The 8-car Kyle Busch out on the racetrack, spun out in practice early, struggling with this lap right here, guys.
12 for Kyle Busch, 2-time champion. By the way, while we were visiting down there, Eric Jones went to 4, so good qualifying effort for him.
Here's a guy that had a great run going last week. Didn't really get the result. I mean, the average running position was probably somewhere in the mid-top 10 all night long, and start to seeing maybe this team turn the corner as well. He had a terrible corner right there, though.
Didn't lack commitment on entry. It just didn't do what he wanted in the middle.
He went down in there, chased the car up the racetrack, and he's trying to go to throttle, just could never really do it. Losing the nose of the car, just not handling well. Saw his teammate Gilliland struggle just a moment ago. And this team, too, has pretty similar issues with the balance of the race car, half a second off the pole.
I tell you, I was fascinated this week. This car in general, everyone I talk to, it just needs to be hustled. It needs to be attacked. It needs to be overdriven. Those are all the terms people use about making time. And then Carl, who's won here so many times, talked about how that is nothing that had ever worked for him here. That was years ago. So I came here with a totally different mindset to see what works, and I'm seeing a balance. Some guys are very tentative into the corner. Other guys like Reddick look to me like he overdrove it. The car slid and he just jumped back in the gas. So it seems like I've yet to find a correlation to entry speed and commitment level and overall time.
Joey had a interesting turn 1 and 2 where he kind of backed up the entry, gained some of that back, but still just a little bit of time off of Reddick.
Joey 32nd in practice, but look at this, goes to 2nd. And in fact, when you look at Team Penske, they put all 3 of their cars right now in the top 7, 29-43 for our reigning champ.
I just want to put an asterisk next to Logano, that slow lap. When we got to lap 30 on tires, he was as good as anyone. So I don't know what to make of the early run speed on that 22 car.
Trevor?
Yeah, I'm here with Tyler Reddick, and we were just talking about his lap. We said it wasn't pretty, but it sure was fast. What happened there into turn 1 when you got so free and up the racetrack?
Yeah, just a lot of mistakes. Missed downshifts, missed marks both ends, but it's great that our Pinnacle Toyota Camry's fast. I hope others make mistakes like I did and we can hang on and get the pole, but yeah, we'll just see. We'll see. Hopefully it's good enough.
Driver gets out, says he made a lot of mistakes. Still on the pole by a 10th or so. It's a fast 45 Toyota from Tyler Reddick.
I don't know if that would hurt my feelings more or less, right? If he got out and talked about how bad it was, yet he's still the fastest guy.
But he always puts it on his shoulders.
He does. Really
every time. Oh. Josh Berry 9th as we check in on Brad Keselowski. Ford's looking good so far.
Brad's doing pretty good here. I mean, I know he's a half a 10th off, almost a full 10th off, but that's not bad considering that it's a little over a 10th back to 2nd place. So this is trending maybe into a top 5 lap. If he can have a good 3 and 4, he gives up a lot on entry, but he gains some of it back right here. Great lap.
I totally agree. We're going to focus on the pole, but you start inside the top 10. I think there's 8 really good pit stalls when I look at the openings and all that. Not a tight pit road, but all that kind of helps. So a great start to the weekend for the 6 car.
Momentum for Keselowski, the top 5 last week, 2nd right now in qualifying. On board, Denny Hamlin. They need a little shot of momentum, too. We talked about their struggles, and really not struggles as much as bad luck lately.
Little bad luck, little bad execution. I have to put that fueling situation as a human error. Great 1 and 2. Look at this.
Made all that up on corner exit.
You mentioned Reddick hitting the chip of the line. Listen to this engine, see if Denny shifts before the start finish.
Oh, he's got it. Look at that. Great 3 and 4. Gained over a 10th down there.
Wow.
Reddick said, I made a mistake. Hopefully everyone else does. Hamlin hit it out of the park. 29-17. 11 is at the top of the board.
That stings more than your boss going out there and beating you. It's one guy you love to beat every week.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the 47. What a great year this team is having. Making his 450th start. 3 times the driver has won in start 450. Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson, and Dale Jr. You in Michigan in 2012. That was a great day for you guys.
Sure was. This guy right here, though, he beats all I ever seen. Their ability to just grind it out. They don't have any speed. They're just a struggling, in my mind, a single car team, and they are outperforming a lot of great race teams this year, sitting in a great position in the points right above the cut line.
I saw my man Ricky down in the garage area, and his hands were all blistered. And I said, what'd you do? He needed that Murph workout on Monday for Memorial Day? He said, man, I just started feeling better today. That workout is serious. I mean, he is extremely physically fit. So it was crazy to see the damage he had done to his hands.
And we talk about momentum. Michael McDowell missed his pit stall last week, rallies all the way back for a top 10 finish. One of those drivers, as we talk about the cut line, knocking on the door of a playoff spot, and pretty good speed here in the 71.
Such a funny thing of when you go. If this was before Hamlin had gone, this would have been green the whole time around for Reddick, right? It's just that lap from Hamlin, once again, as Dale pointed out, it puts such a gap from first to second that if you're only a 10th off, you've had a great lap.
4th for McDowell. And how about this? Kyle Larson's 21st. Last time Larson started outside the top 20 on a non-drafting track, Dover 2024. Qualified 21st, and you know, it's hard to make connections, but that's also a concrete venue.
Fun to watch this guy drive a race car. He gets up on the steering wheel. Brian Priest, who would have thought the 3rd RFK team put together just in the middle of the offseason, now out here 6 points above the cut line, having a great season.
He's got a couple of truck wins here. Solid in Xfinity, top 5 in this race last year. And Priest is 13th of the 33 drivers that have been on track. 6 to go in qualifying. The first of those, A.J. Allmendinger.
AJ and the team had a little trouble in tech inspection, lost a little bit of time on practice, but went out and ended up 11th on the board, and 10th and a half, building to 2 tenths down the back straightaway. Gonna need a really good 3 and 4 down here. Another 10th loss there.
$12 for Allmendinger. 29-61. 5 to go. Bell, Briscoe, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and William Byron. Everybody chasing that man. Denny Hamlin, best lap of the day. 29-17. Here's his teammate.
We shouldn't be surprised. Hamlin's on the pole here in 22 and 24, so he knows how to qualify around here.
Bell last year, his teammate, won both stages, led a ton of laps, but spun out, hit the wall, finished outside the top 30.
And he's within reach. Half a tenth is possible down here at this end of the racetrack. It's going to have to be nearly perfect.
Not going to be perfect, but he's going to execute well enough to have a pretty solid starting spot. Christopher Bell at the line, 4th, 29-38.
Toyotas, 1, 2, 4 right now. Looking pretty good. Last Toyota to qualify, Briscoe, the 19 car.
And Chase was really good in practice earlier, driving the 19. Won the pole last week for the Coke 600, finished in the top 5 for a 2nd consecutive week.
This team with James Smalls had some good runs here, had some good cars here in the past. You got to feel like they've got an opportunity to put a great car, and it looks like a great car so far. Trending in the green, going down into turn 3. It is so tight, though. He's going to have to be perfect down here. He's gaining time, guys. This is a good run to the flag.
Could it be 2 weeks in a row for the 19 on the pole? P1 right now. Briscoe, 29-12, jumps in front of Denny Hamlin.
They talked about Briscoe needing to find, the limit of these Joe Gibbs Toyotas first year in the seat. And for the last 2 weeks, he has found the limit. We'll see if anybody can match him.
Top 3 are Toyotas. Last 3 to go, Chevrolets. Here's Chase Elliott in the 9. Won this race 2022.
That look over his shoulder of seeing him downshift, that's going to be such a great look all night. I mean, you see right here.
Yeah, that's really nice, being able to see the downshift and working those bumps. See him grab the gear before the start-finish line. The Toyotas ran all the way through into the chip for maybe a little more acceleration.
9th for Chase Elliott. Ross Chastain won here 2023. Going to run the Xfinity race this evening for you guys driving that 9 car. 3rd start of the year in a JRM Chevy. And, of course, so successful last weekend, putting himself in the playoffs with a victory in the Coca-Cola 600.
Yeah, I know how Justin Marks must feel every single week. You got to have some thick skin. This guy doesn't mind rubbing fenders with folks.
Yeah.
And making it exciting. He's fun to watch.
I love it when you get a star who's unapologetic. Yeah. I think that's what makes sports great. They're willing to get to this level of uncomfortable that I'm not sure everybody will, right? They're put it all out there. Good lap.
Yeah.
He says he has no friends at the racetrack. That's better than me. I just have no friends, you know?
Oh, come on. Adam, we're gaining on it.
That's
right. Two.
Yeah, well, we're getting our arms around it. Chastain top 5, last car to go, William Byron. Championship leader coming into the second half of the regular season.
Really good lap for Byron. We weren't really incredibly high on his speed in practice. Felt like he was a top 10 car, but needed a little bit more, but this is a pretty solid run.
Going to be the best from Hendrick Motorsports, it would appear. Lost a little off of turn 4, back to the line. Byron ends up 3rd, your pole sitter for the Cracker Barrel 400. Chase Briscoe, 3rd pole of the year, and he goes back-to-back, winning it last week in the Coke 600 and delivering again here in Nashville.
Yeah, pretty impressive, and this is what we want to see. When we were told that this team was getting together, when this driver was hired for this car, we all expected this right out of the gate. It took a while for this team to gel, for him to understand how to drive these cars the way they need to be driven, but we're starting to see the results. Marty.
Yeah, Junior, I think they'll look back at that Charlotte test as a big turning point for this team, and Chase has gotten way more comfortable behind the wheel, but back-to-back weeks, and this week by 5/100ths over a second over your teammate. Where did you gain that 5/100ths, you think?
I don't know. I guess I just pushed my head farther forward or harder coming to the line. Yeah, honestly, I thought I ran a decent lap. I felt like I gave a little bit up. You know, I thought there was definitely still more there, but it was just a smooth, clean lap, and sometimes that's what it takes. So, yeah, really, obviously a good Saturday for our Bass Pro Shops Toyota. That's 2 weeks in a row we've been able to do that now, which is nice. Just we need to put a Sunday together now. So see if we can do that. You know, track position is going to be really, really big here tomorrow. So that's name of the game, obviously, almost everywhere we go, but certainly this place. So hopefully we can, you know, maintain our track position and keep it up front all day long.
To his point, Trevor, they have put together speed at these intermediate tracks. Can they put together the whole race? That's the question. We'll find out tomorrow night.
Yeah, Marty, the Toyota stood out today in practice with long-run speed, but now in qualifying showing short-run speed as well. How important is this starting position with the lack of fall-off and the difficulty with track position here?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a track position type race, and you know, with very minimum fall-off, even in practice, I kept having to back up from the guys that I was catching. So it's going to be critical. Obviously, a great job our Progressive Toyota team to get us a good starting spot there. Obviously, it would be a good pit stall. Would have loved to have #1, but Chase just ruined that. So, man, just really happy for the whole Joe Gibbs Racing team to get the front row there. And, man, I definitely think we can race from that spot.
Denny Hamlin, happy enough for second best today.
Reading between the lines, second sucks, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at our starting grid. It's an all Joe Gibbs Racing front row for tomorrow night's race.
But the front 4 rows are stacked, right? You have William Byron and Reddick, another Toyota there in row 2. Last week's winner, Ross Chastain. Brad continuing this hot streak in the 6th car. And then Bell, and how about Micah McDowell? I mean, time and time again, just continuing to qualify up front.
Another driver that's looking really good. Ricky Stenhouse right there in row 7. Pretty awesome run. And Ryan Blaney, we thought he was probably the best car, maybe the fastest car on the long run. Starting way back in row 8. It'd be fun to watch him work through the field.
Allmendinger row 9. We saw he had some issues with his transaxle, his transmission. We'll see if that holds up all day. Another Spire car outside row 9. SVG, row 12, getting better every week on these ovals, figuring it out.
And the road courses are coming, which is good for him.
And way back here toward the back of the field, Hocevar, we saw him run good in practice. It'd be fun to see him try to drive through the field. Look at where Kyle Larson is. Row 14, very uncharacteristic. Have to wait and see what kind of speed they have in the car tomorrow.
That's the highlight section. Busch, Hocevar, and Larson all together. Corey High making his second Cup start here. We'll see how the experience pays off for the young man driving the 67.
I would have lost some money on John Hunter Nemechek, too. Team's had a lot of speed lately. Row 18 for him.
Had a little mistake down in turn 1 and 2. Probably a lot better race car than this is showing right here. So some work to do, but probably still got their head up high.
If you're a NASCAR team, it's time to roll up your sleeves and go to work. We hit the second half of the regular season tomorrow. And it all begins here at Nashville Super Speedway. Going to be a fun evening.